Okay. So let's begin with the Vajradhara prayer on page 1 of the little text. Dorje Chang Du som Sheja Kun Ken Kamava Che Shi Chung Yidu Pazen Nandam Dri Tak Sal Sum Paden Drupa Shok Saplam Chakya Chen Nyame Dom Kunda Kokagula So What is so Kagula Manam Yu Patin Munam Tarjin Jilo Shen Lokong Gyaki Pasum Pashin Sheno Kuna Chak Shin Me Padam Sedi Do Tak Shu Pegom Chenma Nikushen Pame Pajin Jilo Muguhum Gigo Wosum Bashin Menakte Goje Pelamala Guntu Sowade Pegom Chenla Chumin Mugu Kewajin Jilo Yang Me Gong Ginyo Shisum Pashin Gang Shado Pemo Somade Machude Kajo Pegom Chenla Gom Jalo Dam Jawajin Jilo Nam Tok Mo Wuju Kusum Pashin Jiyan Mayin Jiyan Chawara Makabro Pacha Wegom Chenla Kordeye Mito Pajin Jilo Kewa Kuntu Yang Daklamada Drame Chuki Pavalom Chuchin Sadang Lam Giyun Chen Rab Zogni Dorje Changi Go Pamyut Utop Shok Okay, good morning. So today is Green Tara. Tara is one of my favorite practices, actually. It was the second mantra I ever learned. And Tara has a lot, I mean, of course there's 21 Taras, so today we're going to talk about Green Tara specifically. But Tara has several different sort of origins for where she kind of comes from. So some origins are sort of affiliated with that she arose through the compassion of Avalokiteshvara's tears. So Avalokiteshvara, the great Bodhisattva, Mahasattva of compassion, who is an emanation, living and breathing as the Dalai Lama is considered a living Avalokiteshvara, was said to be sitting up in his realm and looking sort of, his name literally means Lord who looks down. So from there he saw all of the innumerable sentient beings just suffering, and what they needed but they lacked, and what they wanted but they couldn't have, and all of the burdens that the basic ignorance and the 3 root poisons that arise out of that ignorance sort of give. And he was seeing them running into this situation of suffering over and over again, and he felt such an overwhelming sense of compassion for him, trying to liberate all of these innumerous beings, that he felt like they were uncountable. It was very difficult for him to do. And so he began to weep and he began to cry out of genuine compassion for these beings that were suffering so. And then from his tears, it was said that there was a lake that was formed. And in this lake arose a blue lotus. And in the center of the blue lotus was a 16-year-old girl. They're always 16. But so that there arose this 16-year-old beautiful girl who was the form of a goddess, and that was Tara. So that's sort of one origin story. The other origin story that I tend to like a little bit better, just because I'm a female, is that there was this princess. And her name was, I always butcher it because of I'm terrible with Pali Sanskrit, but it's Janenda Kardardia, which means like the moon of wisdom. And so she was very devoted to the Buddha. And so she was always making offerings, and she was continuously supplicating, and she was giving donations to the monks, and she was always trying to sort of do practice and be very generous with her wealth. And as a result, some monks told her that, oh, well, we're going to pray for you, and we're going to hope that you're going to, in your next life, that you'll be able to have a male body. To which she kind of was like, oh, do you not know anything? So in true form, really, we are told in Tantric Buddhism that there's this understanding of, the feminine principle of wisdom and the male principle of action, and the union of the wisdom and the action is sort of the full enlightened principle. And I recently said to a patient, actually, who was asking me some very specific questions about a practice, and I said, well, you're not going to like what I have to say about this, because actually you don't need a partner in order to engage in having these 2 aspects of your own self arise. So actually, truly within Buddhism, if you eliminate duality, there is no male and there is no female. And so there's a lot of sort of myths that talk about that, and I'll touch on that in a bit. But she basically said, like, you are so misinformed because you think that I have to have a male body. Now, it's true, I'm a mother of 3, and I'm eternally frustrated by my lack of time to be able to go and do long-term practice. I have a 3-year-old, I have a 7-year-old, and an almost 12-year-old going on 20, And so I'm constantly burdened by my normal sort of motherly duties, and so that makes it very difficult to sort of go and do any sort of long retreat at all. I would kill for just 2 or 3 months, really, would be awesome. But at this point, I would love 2 weeks, So it's really hard when you are a female, and if you think about back many centuries where women were even more sort of confined to their duties, it could be quite difficult to obtain liberation. But as I always say to my monk friends and my Tugu friends, there's a reason that Naropa couldn't be enlightened, even though he was fully educated in all of his knowledge from Nalanda University. He had to have an old hag come and point out to him that he was not really on the right path. So there's always this feminine wisdom energy in different stories that kind of come along, and there's one with Shariputra as well, where there's just not there's not an aspect that's awoken up within oneself. And so in that sense, this dualistic nature, when we move totally into an enlightened form, we don't have this concept of male or female. But she happened to be in a particular female body at that time, and so then she took a vow and she said, I refuse to ever be in a male form until I am fully enlightened, just to show you all that it can be done. And so she makes this vow that she will continue in female form in order to save sentient beings. And it's said that because of her prowess, because of her forthright understanding of this non-dual nature, that Avalokiteshvara and the Buddha Amoghasiddha basically gave her the name Tara, which means savoress. So what this woman said, there's a quote from a text where she says, here there is no man, there is no woman, no self, no person, and no consciousness. The labels of male or female have no essence, but deceive the evil-minded world. And I think that kind of pretty much sums it up in terms of, what she had to say. But historically, we can't find any documented, so I have friends that are Buddhist scholars, and so there's no real documented evidence of Tara before the sort of 5th or 6th century in the Common Era. So there is a connection to Tara and the Hindu goddess of Durga, which is also considered one who helps people through difficult passages and so on. So she sort of shares a lot of similarity and a lot of names with Durga, because Durga also rescues people from difficult passage. And it is said that Tara was said to have first appeared in India. This is no surprise, actually, to any Tibetologist. And she's among one of the most practiced deities in all of Tibet. So everyone knows Tara. Everyone knows the Tara mantra. That's why I said it's the second one I learned. There's a particular, very special Tara that's at the Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya, which actually is said to have spoken and sort of instructed certain people to do things, including go and bring the Dharma to Tibet when they didn't want to. So they were like, oh, it's so far. No, you have to go. So she's a particular special Tara. So if you ever get a chance to go to the Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya, has anyone ever been there? You've been there. You've seen the Tara on the side, yeah. So you got to go to around one full kora, and she's right on the side entrance, and you will constantly see people making offerings to her. So she's a very special Tara. There's also several other Taras that are quite special within the Kathmandu Valley. So there's one in Parping that's a self-arising Tara that's kind of coming out of the wall. And that's where Guru Rinpoche went to practice, and he was doing a lot of Vajrakalaya, and he was doing a lot of pacification practices, because he was trying to get to Tibet and everything was kind of stopping in his way. And so there's a Tara there, and then within the stupa, the giant great stupa of Bodhanath, there's also a Tara that's kind of on the door. She's very small. She's only about this big. And unless you're local, you don't really know about her, if you're just a tourist. But when you do, again, one full core around, she's at the very end. And that's a wish-fulfilling stupa, meaning that the prayers that you really deeply make with full intention at that stupa are said to have come true. So when I lived in Nepal, I used to do my kora twice daily, and at the very end I would always pray to Tara, Tara, please help me to become a Tibetan doctor. Please help me to become a Tibetan doctor. So that was my prayer to her for her assistance for years. And then I remember when I came out of Tibet after I received my papers after my final exams as a physician, then I said, now please help me to be a compassionate one. Please help me to be a compassionate one. So we've moved on to level 2 with Tara's request. So she has many different forms and different colors, but there's meanings sort of behind each and every one of them. But you see kind of 2 most common Taras. So Trungpa Rinpoche is actually very close with White Tara, which is more of a healing Tara, and sometime we can give teachings on her as well. She's more for longevity and long life and fertility practice and this kind of thing. So you see a lot of physicians will do White Tara as well. So she's really offering protection from, birth, old age, sickness, and death, which is why a lot of physicians practice White Tara. And also we can consider that, Tara herself, her name has several different meanings. If we go all the way back to the Pali meaning, it means that she has to get to the other side. Tara literally means